Good day, good day. It says we're live, and it is 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific, 9 o'clock in the morning here in Costa Rica, 11 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in France, and our guest is coming to us from France today. I have no idea what time it is in Australia. Usually I've got this down, but this is a different time for us. So I don't have that down, but Australia, it's Wednesday somewhere in the afternoon. In New Zealand, Wednesday in the afternoon. And it's a special edition of Facebook Live. And I want to do a little introduction as to why we're doing this. A couple of reasons, and then I will introduce our guest. So this is my belief system that we have, when you're looking at health conditions that you aren't quite getting a handle on, and you're really trying. It's like you're backing out of the driveway and you say, what's wrong with this car? It's not backing out, the emergency brake. And you let go of the emergency brake and you back up the way you expected to, right? When you're working on your health and you're trying, you're really changing your foods or doing whatever aspect of health you've learned about that made sense to you, and it ain't working. If it ain't working the way you want it to, there's an emergency brake somewhere. And I talk about that in this book that came out a few years ago, You Can Fix Your Brain, #1 in 7 categories on Amazon for brain and nervous system function because it's so comprehensive. And I talk about the pyramid of health. And the pyramid of health, you think of a pyramid, most people think, well, it has 3 sides to it. No, it has 4. There's a base, and then there's 3 sides going up that form the pyramid. The base is your structure. The base is the home of chiropractic, orthopedics, bones and muscles, exercising, pillows you use to sleep with, orthotics in your shoes, all those kinds of things. That's the base. And structure can affect any health problem you may have. Then one side of the pyramid is the biochemistry, and that's where we all focus the vast majority of our attention. That's the drugs we take, the foods we eat, the vitamins we take, the air we breathe. Really important to look at that because it's a primary for most people that has to be addressed. But when you're addressing it and you still have an emergency brake on, you have to ask, where's the emergency brake coming from? Is it the structure? All right, I'm dealing with my foods, or I'm dealing with the air. I've cleaned my house of mold or whatever it should be. The next side of the triangle is the emotional spiritual. And that's the one that people really don't want to get into most of the time, but that can be as big a trigger as the other. And then the last side of the pyramid is the electromagnetic, which most people just don't know about. They've heard something here or there. You're not supposed to put a cell phone next to your brain, and some things like that maybe. So they use a earbud, but the earbud's got a battery in it. You're putting the battery next to your brain with an earbud, right? So, but most people don't know much about the electromagnetic. So our guest today is an expert on the electromagnetics and how that can be the emergency brake that's holding back your health. So with that, let me just tell you a little about Lloyd Burrell. And I'm going to read it to make sure I don't miss anything here. First, he's on live with us from France today, where they're having a bit of a heat wave. We don't feel for you, Lloyd. Lloyd is on a mission to raise awareness about the dangers of electromagnetic fields from cell phones and similar devices and share solutions. He's the founder of the website electricsense.com, creator of the Healing with Vibration Summit and the Emf Health Summit, which introduced EMFs to an audience of over 200,000 people. He's a regular speaker at international online events, podcasts, radio shows, and hosts his own bi-monthly EMF Health podcast. He's the author of 2 ebooks on EMFs, and his latest book is called EMF Practical Guide. So Lloyd, welcome, and thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks so much, Dr. Tom. Thanks so much. Great intro. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So my first question to you is, and it might be a tough one, how do people know if EMFs are a problem for them?
Great question. Well, I was lucky. I was lucky in this respect because, and that's what people say to me when I'm talking about EMFs now, when they say, well, how did you know it was EMFs? Well, for me, it was very simple. Cell phone next to the ear, excruciating pain, cell phone away, no pain. And it just came over out of the blue on about nearly 20 years ago now, actually, 2002. This occurred to me just one day like that. I answered my cell phone and the excruciating pain didn't come on initially, but it came on over the course of a few calls, literally a few calls. And how I knew that it was, all I knew is it's something to do with this cell phone, because I got this, what I now call hot ear. I got this prickly skin. I got this tingling skin. And these were immediate symptoms, which maybe are ringing bells with people that are watching this. And then I got these more medium-term and then long-term symptoms. And the medium-term symptoms were these terrible, terrible headaches. Like the way I describe these are like those hangover kind of headaches, when you're younger. I don't get those so much now, thankfully, but those kind of as if your head feels as though it's in a drum, and walking around all day literally with these really bad headaches. And I know some people are prone to headaches, but I've never been prone to headaches. In fact, I barely had a day off work in my life due to any kind of sickness or illness up to that point. I'm just not the kind of guy who I'd get things, but I always sort of powered through.
I'd like to pause right there for a moment, because you said something that's really important for people that are watching that they might just blow right past. And that was, for you, when you held your cell phone next to your head, you get headaches after a couple of calls. Now, so people could say, well, I don't get headaches, so I don't have a problem with it. But what I want to correlate that to is I cut my teeth in this world of functional medicine by talking about gluten and gluten sensitivity. And I've said for years, the lucky ones are the ones that eat wheat and they get gut pain. They're the lucky ones. As you said, you were a lucky one, because you eat something and you feel sick in your stomach, then you say, oh, well, I don't like it, but yeah, I better not eat that too much, because you recognize there's a problem. But the science tells us with gluten that the ratio is 8-to-1. For every one person that has gut symptoms, there are 8 that don't. They get brain symptoms, brain fog, or headaches when they eat wheat, or they get joint pain, or they get skin pain, or they get liver dysfunction. They don't get gut pain. So the lucky ones get gut pain. And as you said, you were lucky because you felt it. I just want to take it to people right away and say, if you don't get headaches, that doesn't mean you don't have a problem with EMFs, right? That it can manifest in so many other areas.
Exactly. And this is really perhaps the most important point to take home from this conversation today is, even if you can't feel that EMFs are impacting you, your cells can. And this is what science says. And so I started out, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a building biologist, I have no formal training in this. I'm just a guy who got sick and figured out how to get well, fortunately, and then started sharing the message online, and it just grew from there. And the happy ending is I no longer experience these debilitating symptoms. But one of the things that the science says very loud and clear is that it's not because you can't feel these electromagnetic fields, and that's what I mean when I say EMFs. It's not because you can't feel these man-made frequencies that they're not impacting your health. And there's so many ways that they can be. And some of the things, and again, these are things which I had. So the headaches, very bad headaches, and they weren't even necessarily headaches when I was using the phone. It was just, I got headaches all the time. Insomnia, so difficulty sleeping. I was walking around like the living dead. I just I couldn't sleep properly. When I was awake, I didn't feel well. It was like nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Depression, I'm not depressive, and yet it made me feel depressed. I mean, maybe it was the fact that I went from doctor to doctor and specialist to specialist, and nobody could provide a solution. I had brain fog. So a lack of clarity in thinking, memory problems, certain anxiety again, which is not my nature particularly either. And there are honestly the list of symptoms that you can experience from these exposures really is very extensive, and there's a lot of literature on this. And so we've got these symptoms, and again, skin symptoms, that's a big one. And it all depends on the frequencies, because different frequencies are impacting us in different ways. And one of the reasons why this is, it appears, is because of an antenna effect, because actually we're all living, walking antennas, right down to our DNA, fractal antenna, right down to every limb, right down to, you know, our cells, antennas. We are literally walking antennas. And so we're picking up different frequencies. And these frequencies are impacting us in different ways. And we're surrounded by these frequencies. Increasingly, 5G, that's where we're going, more frequencies. And these frequencies are a problem, clearly.
So this means that if a person doesn't have a problem with a cell phone, it could be coming from a different source. It could be your television. And especially if the color television is in the other room, if you've got a big screen and it's on the other side of this wall, and your child is sleeping in this bedroom, and you're watching television at night, the EMFs that are being produced from that could be going to your child, and that could be contributing to their brain dysfunction and attention deficit.
Exactly. Lots of problems with children. One of the things with children is we know that children are more vulnerable for a whole load of reasons. Their immune system's not formed. That just the thickness of their skull means their brain is less protected, higher water content. So there's lots of science on that dating back to the 1990s. That is the most concerning aspect of all of this, personally, is what it's doing to our children, future generations, particularly small children. We've got thermal imaging of how it's impacting a 5-year-old's brain compared to a 10-year-old's brain compared to an adult. And you can see very clearly how it's way worse for a 5-year-old's brain. It's terrible. It's awful. Honestly, do not give that's an aside, but do not give your children a cell phone, and protect them. Pregnant mothers need to know this information because they're particularly vulnerable too. And young mothers, parents, this is super important information for everybody, but particularly for our children.
You know, Lloyd, it was the first study I read on this topic. I remember it was 1992, I think it was. And it was children that lived within a quarter mile of high power tension wires outside, within a quarter mile, had a much higher incidence of leukemia
Yes.
than all the children that live further away. And it just shocked me. I said, what? What's that got to do with anything? But that led me into the whole world. Actually, my first exposure to EMF toxicity was in January of 1978. And I had just started my medical education, just started. It was the first couple of weeks. I knew absolutely nothing, but I saw Dr. Sheldon Deal was going to be coming to campus and talking about some health topic, Mr. Arizona. And I thought, okay, this guy's a bodybuilder. He's going to be healthy. I'd like to hear what he has to say. So I went and listened to him. He had a color television brought into the room, and color televisions were fairly new at that point. Turned it on, but turned the volume down. Walked over to a table, opened his briefcase, and took out a bar magnet the size of a cell phone. Held it up like a policeman holds a flashlight, held it up, and walked over to the color television. The picture turned upside down. He walked away and it went right side up. He walked towards it, it went right upside down. He walked away and it went right side up. They fixed that since then on color televisions, but he demonstrated and he said, that's what electromagnetic pollution does to your brain. And it's called neurological switching, meaning people that say right when they mean left. They write the number 3 backwards. They're just switched. They're just, oh, wait a minute. They write the word receive. It's supposed to be I before E except after C, and they spell it backwards. You know, just these silly little things that they know, but they're switched. And I used to find that a lot, especially in kids that were having health issues, that they were neurologically switched. What are some of the other symptoms that we might think of, especially with our kids?
Well, with our kids, the big one is ADHD, is all these behavioral problems, really. ADD, ADHD, um, because, you know, these frequencies impact us in so many ways, impacting our hormones, you know, impacting, so therefore impacting every aspect of our life, you know, how we sleep. Um, with regard to children, we know we've got a dopamine effect also when they're using cell phones.
That
You know,
means that means hormones in the brain.
yeah,
Mhm.
hormones in the brain. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there can even be, you know, nausea, dizziness, obviously all these skin effects, and also something that I experienced is sensitivity to light. A lot of people are experiencing tinnitus also with this.
That's ringing in the ears. If,
Correct.
if you get a ringing in your ears. You know, Lloyd, I'm going to pause for a moment, and I forgot to do this. I always do shout outs, you know, when people come on and they say hello. And I'd like to start just by acknowledging some of the people that are here. Melissa's here from Virginia. Cindy's in Pennsylvania. Heather Gray says good morning. Brenda's here from Saskatchewan. Canada, stay healthy and safe is her message. Bojana's here from Slovenia. Hello, Bojana. Bonnie's here from MB, Canada, wherever that is. Love your podcast. Learned so much. Thanks, Bonnie. Jennifer Whitley says, good morning. Carmelina says, I'm guessing what projection TV would be safe. That's an interesting question. What projection TV would be safer? Do you, is there a checklist of things like that that
Well,
you'll be talking about?
sure. You know, it's what we have to realize is that we are moving into or we're very much in it, this wireless world, and when we say, there's all these different words for it, but we call it wireless, we call it smart, we call it Bluetooth, and all these are kind of industry words. We call it Wi-Fi. And these are kind of industry words, kind of feel-good words almost. But what all this really is radio frequency microwave radiation. And there's two words actually in that sentence which maybe are setting off alarm bells in people's heads. And one of them is radiation. Oh, you mean like radiation, like, you know, Fukushima radiation, like, you know, Hiroshima radiation? Well, not quite, but yes. So the difference is we're talking about non-ionizing radiation. And the whole controversy is that this non-ionizing radiation is somehow safe, which clearly it's not. And that's what thousands of studies back up. Whereas this nuclear radiation, if you want, that is ionizing, so it is a higher frequency. Everybody's agreed that's very dangerous, but the controversy is around this non-ionizing radiation. So radiation, it is radiation. Let's be clear. The
That's a
second
really
thing
good
is,
point. Really good point. May I stay with that one for a minute?
yeah,
So it's the difference between Fukushima being a bazooka fired at you and this non-ionizing radiation is like something rubbing on your skin. Now,
you know,
if everyone would do this, just take your finger and do this and just keep doing it for the next 2 minutes. Just look on your clock, if you have a clock on the wall, or look on your cell phone next to you. Do this for 2 minutes, this light, minor irritation, no big deal. And what you notice is your skin turns red. It's getting irritated. Then do it for 2 hours and imagine what happens to your skin. Then do it for how many hours you're on your phone every day and imagine what's happening to your brain. That these tiny amounts of irritation, it's nowhere near the kind of radiation that scares the heck out of us from nuclear reactors or flying at 35,000 feet in the air. You know, when you fly, it depends on the solar flares that go in 11-year cycles. But if you're flying at the peak of an 11-year cycle of the solar flares, flying from New York to Los Angeles, you get as much radiation as 7 chest x-rays, just flying from New York to LA. Now, at the low point of the 11-year cycle, it's 1 to 2 chest x-rays every time you fly. So that's radiation you have to really be concerned about because it accumulates, the damage accumulates. Now we're talking about a lifetime of this irritation here. And I want to stay on this for a minute because my wife wanted this special kind of cooker, blender. It's called a Thermomix. It comes from Germany. The thing's incredible what it can do. You can take a whole fish that's been cleaned, put it in the bottom, then you put some vegetables in it and you put rice in it in a special basket, all goes in, you set the timer, and in an hour, the rice is perfect, the vegetables are still crispy but cooked, and the fish is perfect. So it's an incredible piece of equipment, but I was shocked to find one day when I turned it on to make some oatmeal, the thing says, there's an upgrade to your system. Would you like to upgrade now? And what I realized, wait a minute, you mean this thing's connected to the internet in our house? And so even the blender sitting on the counter is connected to the internet. We talk to Siri. Siri, turn the music down. Siri's connected to the internet. How many things in our home, Lloyd, can you rattle off?
This is exactly where I was going with this, is that all these devices which you're talking about here, and by the way, my wife's also got a Thermomix, but an older version, which hasn't got that. And I know it's not got that because I have a bag full of EMF meters, and everything that comes into this home of ours gets checked, everything. And
do you want to trade? I'll trade you.
No way.
Okay.
So this is the world. This is the reality of the world we live in. Be it the TV, because you're saying, well, which is a safe TV? You know, be it the TV, be it the cooker, be it the be it what you know, any electrical appliance in, your alarm clock, your iron, your electric iron, your toaster, your things which you think, well, how conceivably could that help me, that be smart? Because when they say smart, what they actually mean is it emits radio frequency microwave radiation. And just to finish on that thought again, back to where I was going, because it was the radiation and there was a microwave. And again, when we say the word microwave, that's another word which will set alarm bells going off, because microwave, like your microwave oven, the same frequencies, often 2.4 gigahertz. What's a gigahertz? It's a lot of back and forth a second, 2.4 billion times a second back and forth. It's mind-boggling. It's so fast. Is it natural? No. You know, the Earth's Schumann frequency, 7.8 hertz approximately, is changing. But this is all natural, and we are electromagnetic beings. We're filling our homes with these devices, toothbrushes, which are sending off radio frequency microwave radiation. This is insane.
Really crazy. It is insane. 7.83 hertz is the frequency of planet Earth, that everything grows around on planet Earth. It's called the Schumann Wave. And there's lots that people can read about the Schumann Wave to appreciate why you feel so good when you're out in nature. You're actually grounding yourself in the positive radiation that the human body is designed to live in. Now, that was 7.83 hertz. What's the difference between a hertz and a megahertz?
So a hertz is a cycle a second. So back and forth, one time a second. A kilohertz is 1,000 times, a megahertz is 1,000,000 times, a gigahertz is 1,000,000,000 times, and so it goes on. And so these frequencies, so, you know, like our brain, the alpha state is curiously 7.8 hertz also, like the Schumann frequency. So these lower frequencies are already more coherent with optimum health. But these frequencies, it's not, you know, this is an oversimplification, and it's a complex topic, but it's an oversimplification to say, oh, so the high frequencies are dangerous. Not necessarily. There's way more to it than that. There's like polarization, there's the data content, there's the inlaid frequencies. So we've got like a carrier frequency, and we've got another frequency on it. We've got the modulation. So it's complex. What I say is it's the complexity of this radiation, of these frequencies, that are the problem, of these man-made frequencies. And as you quite rightly say, it's low level. You know this, it's low level. It's okay. You do that, you're fine. But you do that 24/7, 365 days a year for 30, 40 years, you're not going to have any hand left. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
that's where we're going. It's low level. And industry is saying, and I'm not really one to go into the controversy, but there is a lot of controversy around this. Why? Because there's a lot of money around this. Like when they're selling off the licenses for 5G, most recently, you know, this raises literally billions of dollars, of euros, of a lot of money for economies. And, you know, governments need money now more than ever. So that's why we're not necessarily aware of all the dangers and the downsides. So yes, this technology is amazing. Yes, you can do so many things. And by the way, for the first time in 19 years, I now have a cell phone. Why? Because I want to support the cell phone industry. No, it's because we're living in a world where there's so many things I can't do if I don't have a cell phone, like
Right.
transactions online, do anything online. I can't do it unless I've got a cell phone. I have to message my wife who gives me a code to give them, so that I'm the person using. And so it's, you know, so what I'm saying is, okay, this technology is dangerous, but there are ways to use it. And I use my cell phone in a way, in a way which protects me from it optimally. And this is
Yeah.
really my message is, it's not, this technology is not going to go away, but we
Right.
need to know how to protect ourselves from what I call these non-beneficial energies of these man-made electromagnetic fields. And at the same time, as you just mentioned, is to connect with these beneficial healing forces of nature, these beneficial energies of nature, which are out there as soon as you go outside your door, as soon as you go on a beach, as soon as you go in a forest.
Yeah, let's move into some of the things that we can do, because we could take all day talking about the negative effects, and people have heard some of it, and you're very welcome to learn more from Lloyd. He's got lots of information for you. But I'm going to give you an example of one of the little things you can do. So I got a new cell phone. I'm here in Costa Rica, and I dropped my other one too many times, and too cracked up, and couldn't repair it. So I got a new cell phone, and my old phone had a Pong case on it. Now, and I've got a new case now. It's got a nice black case on here. Uh, but what the case does, you know, because I've heard that these cases, if you get the right kind of case, it can block some of the emissions coming out. And I didn't know if that was true or not. I'm no expert in this. But when I got the Pong case and I put it on my phone, my car, I drive an Acura, and it's a nice Acura. And as I'm walking towards the car, my key would say, okay, here we come. And the lights would turn on inside the car, the dome lights, and the lights on the outside shining down on the ground would turn on as I get close to the car. And I touch the door handle and the door opens. Great. When I would hold my cell phone in the same hand as my key to my car and I walked towards the car, it didn't work. I said, what's wrong with this car? What's wrong with this? This is a new car. What's wrong with this car? Oh, wait. And I changed to the other hand and I hold the key by itself. It works just fine. So that told me that this case is blocking some of the emissions from the key. So I don't know how much more protection it is, but that was enough to convince me to spend the 40 bucks, because I'm using this thing every day. And if it's going to help this much, that's something that I can do that's of benefit. So Lloyd, let's get into some of the tools that people can use, or how to think about reducing their
Mm.
exposures to this.
You know, a lot of what you can do here, I'll just very quickly, if we can, I'll share my little protocol. I've got a way, and
Yeah.
protocol's a fancy word, but it's a way of dealing with these exposures. And the protocol is the following. It's called and the U is for understand, and that's what we're doing now. We're understanding this issue. We're understanding that, you know, there's this non-ionizing radiation, as I've talked about, and this microwave radio frequency radiation, and that we've got also these electric fields and these magnetic fields and perhaps this dirty electricity. We've not talked about that but there's a big subject, but it's big. That's what you need to do is to begin to understand this, because it's super important, because we are actually electromagnetic beings. So we don't think of that, because when you go to the doctors, typically he'll give you pills and potions and whatnot. And so we seem to be in this sort of biochemical paradigm for
Let me stop you there so that people understand what you just said, because it's mind expanding when people understand this. We all know about a molecule that it's got atoms, and an atom has a neutron in the center and then the electrons around it, like this, right? If you could compress a 150-pound body into a solid piece that had no air, no space between the electrons and the neutrons, if you could compress it, a 150-pound body is the size of your thumbnail. That's how much matter we are made of, how much actual material. The rest of it is water, and it's the conduct. That's why you have to drink ½ ounce of water per pound body weight, is to make sure your body functions in every aspect. But it all is run by this charge, this electrical charge that's going through our body, that we are not like hard bone muscle. It looks like it to our brains, but you read the science, if I were compressed down so there's no space between any of my electrons, I'd be the size of my thumbnail and not functioning at all in the world, but that's how much matter there is. The rest of it is water, and the communication system is electricity. It's our current. So when we throw abnormal electricity into the environment of this body, it just makes sense that things can go goofy. And I don't want to get technical here, but you just go goofy. You write the number 3 backwards. You say right when you mean left, and you get headaches or so many different symptoms. So I just wanted to pause there to give people a sense of what you were talking about, what we're made of. Please continue.
Yeah, so we are these electromagnetic beings, as you say there. And so we're given that, and that we are being surrounded by all these devices, which we love because they allow us to do so many things, the cell phone and the Wi-Fi, and, sit around the pool and surf the internet and all that. It's great, but there is a downside, and the downside is this exposure. And I'm always keen to, when I talk about this, so in this, so the first is to understand, so that there are these different frequencies, these different categories of electromagnetic fields. The second thing is to measure. At some point you need to measure using an EMF meter, and which are really simple and inexpensive. And frankly, I find that as important as having in your home as a screwdriver, because again, we are surrounded by these frequencies. We're bringing them into our homes, all these devices. There's barely a thing you can buy now which isn't smart. Even in fact, the low end kind of things are typically always smart, whereas the higher end one, maybe you can actually, and when I say smart, I mean it's not smart actually, because it's emitting this radiation.
Right.
So we've got this wireless, and then we've got this wired. Yes, wired too emits radiation, emits these electromagnetic fields, because unfortunately the wires have plastic coating, and these electrons, they don't stay on the wire, they permeate out into the room and into you. So this is all part of the understanding, which I'm just giving you very, very overview.
You talked about the meters, and this is important. Back in the early 90s, I bought a meter. I think back then they were like $350 or $400, and I would give it to patients to take home for 2 nights. And I'd show them in the office, turn it on, and it should always register below 3.0 on this meter. The normal range was below 3.0. And I said, just slowly walk around your walls, around light switches, around anything, and see if there's any problems. Turn on your TV and watch what happens to the meter. And you turn on TV, it goes to 48. And then as you walk away from the TV, it goes down, 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 down. So where you're sitting is at 16. And I'm just giving you an example. It's okay, but that's too much. You either have to sit further away so it's below 3, or get another TV, because that's a pollution, that's a poison, that's accumulative in your body. And I'd have them walk around their entire house, because sometimes mice would chew on wires and there'd be some leakage. Or the alarm clock on the nightstand next to the bed wasn't wired very well when it was put together on some assembly line in Philippines or in China or wherever it was, and it's leaking electromagnetics, and it's right next to your head. And you're sleeping 6, 8 hours a night with this leakage right by your head. So take the meter, check your house. And people would consistently come back and say, wow, I had no idea. And now what you're saying, it's as important as a screwdriver, because there are so many more devices that are emitting this type of frequencies that can be accumulatively disruptive to our body. So let's talk about the meters. Let's give them some hands-on about the meters.
Yeah, absolutely. So hands-on about the meters. Typically, what I recommend are tri-mode meters, and that means they have three functions. They can measure radio frequency, microwave radiation, electric fields, and magnetic fields. My number one choice at the moment, I'm not saying this is the best meter by any means, but it's a good compromise meter in terms of cost and in terms of sensitivity and in terms of accuracy, and that is a tri-field TF2, T for Tommy, F for Freddy, number 2, tri-field 2F TF2. It's a meter came out a few years ago. It's actually an American built meter, design meter built by Alpha Labs, which means at the moment there's no supply problems, because you know in the world there's lots of problems with things made in China and so on. So it's a really simple meter to use. That's why I like it, because most people don't want to get all geeky on this. If you want to get all geeky on this, then get the Cornet ED, E for Eric, D for Derek, 88T plus. Sorry, it's a bit long, but they keep upgrading it and adding another word or letter. Cornet ED88T plus meter. And this is also a tri-mode meter, so it can measure those 3 kinds of electromagnetic fields.
I just posted the tri-field TF2, and what's the Cornet?
So it's a Cornet ED, E for Eric, D for Derek, 88 T, the letter T for Tommy, plus.
AT8, A Apple, Tommy, the number 8.
E for Eric, ED, Cornet, ED, 88 T plus.
Oh,
it's on my website. Yeah.
88, the number.
Yeah.
88,
yes.
88
number 88.
plus.
Yes.
Okay.
And on my website, there are reviews of both of these meters. So this Cornet meter it looks kind of simple, but it's actually a very sophisticated piece of equipment. And you've got all sides of, you get the graphs, you can change the readings, you can, the units use, between like volts per meter or milliwatts per square meter or microwatts per square meter, or, so you can have a lot of fun with this meter, but essentially it measures the same 3 kinds of electromagnetic fields. And then secondly, so that's 1 meter, either the Cornet or the tri-field. And then what I recommend is you at some point get a dirty electricity meter, because here's the thing, just very, 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 very quickly, this dirty electricity thing, you maybe heard of it, you maybe think, well, something else to worry about, but there is quite a lot of science behind this, notably links to cancer, a lot of Russian research behind this, cancer clusters. And what this is, quite simply, is electropollution on your house wiring, on your office wiring, on your wiring. And again, we're back to this thing of what is on your wire doesn't stay on your wire, it permeates out into the room and into you, and it goes internal as it's like people like Dave Stetzer, who's a power expert, who's developed this with Dr. Martin Graham from Berkeley University. And literally you can have a meter, you can measure this, and I'm frank, Dr. Tom, I would put money on anybody having this meter and, not finding that they've got dirty electricity in your home. Frankly, everybody is now, this is now a problem for everybody dirty electricity is rampant. And with a meter like the GS meter, for instance, G for Graham, S for Stetzer, GS meter, you just plug it in. You want to be getting a reading ideally below 50, perhaps below 25 if you can. Sometimes people are getting readings over 1,000, over 2,000. It maxes out at 2,000. That's how much dirty electricity they have in their home. And again, the effects, you know, we were talking about like the so what, if you want, the symptoms, which we were talking about at the beginning. It's the same kind of thing. It's the headaches, it's the brain fog, it's the memory things, it's the skin symptoms, all kind, you know, so a lot of research behind that as well. So that is very simply how to deal with any exposure, the understand, measure, mitigate. And then whatever we look at, be it the cell phone, be it the Wi-Fi, be it whatever we want to deal with, apply the apply the and that is the way to deal with it.
So the tri-field and the cornet will not measure dirty electricity.
Correct.
Okay, and it was the GS, Jerry Sam meter, that will measure the dirty electricity, and we'd love the GS meter to be below 50.
We would. And
Okay.
you know, with EMFs, the thing to understand here is, because like people, like the big question is what's safe? We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't, all we know is as low as possible, because these frequencies, you know, we're kind of in a bit of a different world with electromagnetic fields because they're everywhere. And, you know, the scientists are saying they never stop. They're like a wave, they never stop. So we're always, so what we do know is distance is your friend. And this is a little thing which we can remind ourselves when we're dealing with these exposures. And that's to say, the more space you put in between the device, this is my glasses case, but between the device and yourself, the better. Distance is your friend, always. So the cell phone wants to be as far away as possible. The Wi-Fi, the modem router, as far away as possible. I can get onto that with some specific recommendations in a moment. But whatever that device is, that smart device, and that's why you need to know in your home what the heck is smart. You know, what the heck is emitting this radio frequency, microwave radiation. And really, what I have to say when I talk about this, I'm always saying, look, don't obsess about this. But if you're going to obsess about something, obsess about the EMFs in your bedroom, because that's when we really need to get these exposures down. Because again, we've got a lot of science behind this, how these EMFs notably impede melatonin production, which is this really important hormone, which is secreted primarily by the pineal gland when we sleep, this little pine-shaped cone gland in our brain. And how it, you know, when we sleep, that's when we heal. That's when our cells rejuvenate, regenerate, detoxify. And we need this downtime. It's absolutely vital. And so we need to go low EMF when we sleep. That's the number one priority. What we should be looking at is to be eliminating in our home, really, with regard to almost total elimination in the bedroom, because it's what's going on in that bedroom. If you've got EMFs in the living room, okay. But if you've got them in the bedroom when you're sleeping those 8 hours, you're not getting that quality sleep, you're not going into this, you know, REM sleep, this deep sleep, then we know, you know, you're not connecting with that greater part of yourself, with that, your consciousness, that most essential thing that we are. Then this is when, over time, then when it's going to chip away, and these symptoms are perhaps going to develop into something more serious, cancer, notably Alzheimer's,
That's a
Parkinson's.
really good suggestion. And I don't think I've ever expressed it this way before, but I'm going to from now on. It's a brilliant concept. Is where do you begin? You begin in your bedroom, and you make that room the safest room in your home, your bedroom and your children's bedroom.
Correct.
What does that mean? Well, when we have topics about air pollution, and we talk about the necessity of having an air filtration system in your home. We'll post the link here for the Air Doctor, which is rated #1 as the very best. But you know, if you can afford to buy one Air Doctor, you put it in your bedroom at night or your kid's bedroom, and then you just wheel it out into the kitchen or the living room during the day. You don't have to leave it in the bedroom all day, not working, have it in the rest of the house, but you focus on your bedroom so that you can get the quality of sleep that will activate rejuvenation, to rejuvenate and regenerate your body. As Lloyd is saying, you only heal when you sleep, and you have to get in a state of sleep that relaxes your whole body. It's called parasympathetic dominance. Sorry for the geeky terms, but you need that restful sleep to be healthy and strong the next day. And so you want to create the environment in the bedroom. That's really a brilliant, applicable, something everybody can do. Okay, I want my bedroom cleaner. Okay, so you get a meter and you realize your whole house is full of all this garbage. When you do it, where do you start? You start in the bedroom, and then you move out from there. That's a really good hands-on recommendation, Lloyd. Thanks for that one.
Sure, welcome. And then, I mean, there's lots to be said on the bedroom, and we could talk in great detail, but perhaps I give you some overview tips on perhaps cell phones, on modem, what I call modem routers, which emit this Wi-Fi. So I think cell phones, it's important to talk about that because everybody's got a cell phone. Even Lloyd's now got a cell phone after 19 years, no cell phone. And so how do we use a cell phone safely? Well, it's always a trade-off, but we're trying to use it more safely. It's a question of more safely, and really that means making airplane mode your friend as much as possible, switching it on airplane mode. You know, the number one thing not to do with a cell phone is this. Okay, because you're putting it next to your most precious organ, your brain, which is primarily water, highly conductive. This radio frequency microwave radiation, which cell phones emit, is a class 2B probable carcinogen, according to the very conservative and slightly manipulated World Health Organization. Even they call it a possible carcinogen. So, but scientists are now calling this a probable class 1A. That's really what the classification should be. But so airplane mode, super important. Disconnecting all wireless functionality when you're not using it. And when you are using it, how do you use it? Distance is your friend. Keep that thing as far away from possible. So does that mean you can text all day long? No. You know, I've got people on my website in the comments, they're talking about how they're getting these prickly, tingling symptoms in their hands and in their arms where they're using these phones. So even that, you know, is texting in moderation, and connecting via, I saw yours was connected by a wire, and I've got one of those too, which is one of these kind of connections here, and you put the Ethernet connection in there, and then you can actually use it you can use your phone if you want, like an online wired device. So that's very briefly with regard to the cell phone. Distance is your friend. Airplane mode, really my recommendation is to be only using it in emergencies. You'll take that as you want, but these are very dangerous devices. A lot of science behind this. So that's with regard to the cell phone. Second,
I'd like to stay on that for a moment, because I just heard people's brains. When you said these are very dangerous devices, it's easy for the brain to say, I've been using it for years, I'm fine. So what you have to understand is it's the accumulative amount of damage that accrues. You're not going to have a problem when you use it one day. You know, you're not going to feel a difference. But over the years, the accumulation of the amount of electromagnetic radiation that we're getting, the amount of it, because it all damages your cells. But you know, we get millions of cells that are damaged every day, every hour. I mean, that's being a human on the planet. That happens. You exercise, you're going to damage your muscle cells. That happens. And our body has a regeneration mechanism for the damaged cells. But when you have so much exposure coming in that it overwhelms your regeneration capacity, now you get a deficit. And the deficit accumulates. Maybe it's in your thyroid, if that's your genetic vulnerability. Now you start getting cold hands and feet. You can't lose weight even if you don't eat. It's hard to wake up in the morning. You wish you had 20 more minutes in bed. And you find you lose a little hair or something. You finally go to a doctor and says, well, you got a thyroid problem. And it could have been caused by the accumulative electromagnetic pollution that you've been exposed to in the last 20, 25 years. So when we're talking about EMFs, it's one side of the pyramid. There are many sides, so don't dismiss the potential complication for you in your life because you think you're fine with a cell phone. It's the accumulation of air pollution and bad, if you got a relationship that's nasty at times and you're eating too many French fries and saturated transformed fatty acids, it's the accumulation of all of this stuff that is going to take you down.
Yes.
And if you want rejuvenation, a healthier, younger feeling, functioning you, this is one of the four sides of the pyramid of health that you have to address. So as Lloyd said, and Lloyd, how do people get more information from you? What's your website?
So my website is electricsense.com. So that's all one word, and sense as in common sense. Yeah, SENSE. And there's a free report. There's a lot of user-friendly information. I wanted to talk about this. It's a very solution-oriented approach. Talk about it in a way that people could understand it, because it is, as you've probably noticed, it is a technical, complex subject. It is confusing. There's so many different terms. The human body is confusing. EMFs are confusing, but EMFs and health is mega complex. And so it's a softly way to approach this subject and begin to understand it. And I do bi-monthly podcasts with other guests, with doctors like yourself, and with building biologists and different people, to understand all the different ways that these man-made electromagnetic fields can impact our health.
Marvelous, marvelous. And is there a, besides going to your website, is there an event or another way for people? You've got some books that are out, isn't that right?
I have a book out called the EMF Practical Guide, which is on Amazon, and I have a free online event called the EMF Health Summit 2.0, which you, Dr. Tom, are a guest on. And that is really 40 of the finest minds that I have the privilege of bringing together. People that I know you do a lot of summits, but also people that just you don't see on summits, like Professor Trevor Marshall, Dr. Paul Heroux, Frank Clegg, former CEO of Microsoft Canada, telling the truth on this, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, Dr. Buttar, very controversial figure, really to understand this from every angle, and talking about all these different kinds of frequencies. So that's going to be free and online from the 12th to the 18th of July, over 40 experts. And
we will post the link here today for everyone. And this is the reason why we've invited Lloyd for this special Facebook Live, because usually I'm on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock Pacific. That's today, actually, later today. But we wanted to get this in with Lloyd because I'm booked up on all of the Tuesday times. But this is so important in my mind because you and your partner, Nick, are just, you're the go-to guys in the world that I look to on this topic. And what I really like about what you're doing here is that it's a solution-oriented event with every interviewee that you're interviewing.
correct.
You ask the questions, so we're not just crying wolf here, but what do I do about it? Like, get the meter. If you've got a screwdriver in your house, you need a meter, right? So you can just check. So you spend, so ballpark, how much are these meters?
Around $200, under $200 in the main. You know, I'll tell you something here, right? A little confession. I'm a bit of a cheapskate. When I was hypersensitive, and yet when I first started buying meters, I bought the cheapest meter I could find because I didn't understand about how important it was to have a decent meter. I thought it's a meter, so it'll do the job. No, you know, there's meters and meters, and that's why I started doing the reviews on the meters to really see if they were any good. And you'd really need a laboratory to be able to test them fully, and it was never my intention to do that. But certainly in my tests, I've been able to, you know, determine a certain amount of things. But yeah, under $200. I mean, and so yeah, maybe you don't have the $200 today, but it's an investment. That's the thing to understand. And you can keep, you know, I've got meters here 15 years, my first decent meter, I've still got it, and it's called the Acoustimeter, and it's developed by a Brit, Alistair Phillips, and it's a wonderful meter. It's a biggish thing, you know.
No,
But the new meters are like this. They're sort of the size of a bit bigger than a cigarette packet.
I'm smiling because I can just imagine your office, a geek office. You got all these meters everywhere on the walls. You know, yeah, this was 5 years ago, and this like the old wooden ski that you see in restaurants sometimes, right? You've got all the meters. So if the price of the meter is more than you can afford right now, team up with a neighbor or two, because you're not going to use them every day. You're going to use it, then it's going to sit for a month, and you buy a new appliance or something, you're going to bring it out and check it again. So share the expense with a family member or a neighbor, but get it done. You need a screwdriver in your house, and you need a meter so that you know if your family's being polluted or not. It doesn't matter if you buy a Zenith or an RCA big screen TV. It doesn't matter if you buy a famous name or a cheap Samsung, or I shouldn't say that, but inexpensive ones. It doesn't matter. They all leak, or they all have the potential of leaking. And so you just want to start to educate yourself. If that's all you walk away from today, is two things. One, register for Lloyd's event. They'll come up next month. And two, get a meter. This will change the direction of your understanding of this critical, one of the four sides of the pyramid of health. Just those two things would be great. Well, Lloyd, it's been a pleasure, a real pleasure to be with you here today. I mean, we could just go on for hours and hours, but I really try to keep this at 1 hour for people so they can get on with their day. Thank you so much for being available and for doing this summit. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. I've not heard some of these professors before. I've read a couple of their papers, so I love being able to see the guy and say, oh, I know that guy. He wrote that paper about leukemias and that type of thing. So thank you so much. And everyone, I'll see you at his event. Thanks so much.
Thank you.